Go.
Streaming from South Africa to the world. This is the Stonks Go Moon podcast. What just happened? We break it down so you don't have to.
And welcome everyone to the Stonks Go Moon podcast. Half-baked founders race to scale. Their end game, no structure. Without governance, compliance, or succession plans, big wins turn into fragile legacies. Remco Coerman has spent 25 years helping entrepreneurs, family offices, and investors build the scaffolding behind their businesses. From Africa to the Middle East, he has seen how structure separates the sustainable from the collapsible. Today, he breaks down how founders can prepare for global tax reform, shifting governance trends, and the future of succession. Welcome to the pod.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That was a mouthful. To say, have you ever met someone who likes to pay tax?
I'm still waiting for the person to meet, actually. Someone who actually likes to pay taxes. It's a good thing to make sure that you don't pay too much taxes, but paying taxes now.
Give the king what he deserves and not what he wants. I think, I believe is a saying. So everyone always trying to make their tax implication less. But now the global minimum tax that's coming into effect or has come into effect, depending on when we release this, is shaking things up a bit for big multinationals. Or if you're a founder doing business in multiple jurisdictions, it's going to change things a bit. Do you want to unpack what that is exactly and what the sort of the ramifications are?
It's like implementing a global minimum tax, and it actually, nowadays, it removes the illusion that you can simply just hop to a low tax country and then pay nothing. That's what used to be the case, right?
Like Google did.
Things are changing now.
Like Google did with
for example.
They got their, let's Google, but I mean Starbucks, all of them do it, got the office in Ireland. So effectively, we pay almost 0% tax.
Yeah, they do. And it used to be, what you just needed to do was actually opening an office. That's about it. And then you make sure that all the profits are aligned to, for example, Ireland, which is low tax.
Yes.
And that's the deal. But things are changing, so you have to think about where you open office. And it can be a low-cost tax country, but you need to have substance, structure, and you need to have compliance implemented. And that has been changing, especially if you look at me. We've been living in the UAE for 3 years now.
Yes.
And things are changing in the UAE as well. They implemented a lot of new regulations. So there's a lot going on in the world.
Okay, but now. So I read the US they're basically championing exemptions for themselves. Something about, I can't remember what it's called now, but it's just like side by side or something like that.
What, in the UAE, you mean?
No, in the US.
In the US, but the US is a whole different story at the moment, right? They try to make it like the promised land, even for entrepreneurs and for family offices, but things are changing rapidly now. And once you have the IRS following you, they will be following you for life. That's a big disadvantage for being American at the moment.
It's called the so when I checked, it's the carving out it's a side by side approach. Undermines the original idea of fully uniform enforcement of the Pillar 2 for all participating countries. U.S. multinationals may avoid some of the top-up taxes others would pay. This could create competitive distortions. And it's basically the U.S. doing U.S. stuff again. We've got this idea, okay, cool, we're going to bring some parity into the market, and the U.S. goes, no, U.S. first. We're going to try and exempt some of our companies.
Yeah. And it's interesting to see how that works out. So far, it's not the best thing to do if you look at what's going on in the US.
Okay. Why? Why would you say that?
I would say that if you try to implement regulations that, for your perspective, are the best you can do, if you look at what the US is doing at the moment, it doesn't necessarily mean that it will actually bring you profit on the short term. Because now it's like implementing these tariffs that they do. And they try to convince the population of the US from this is the best thing, but in the end, the prices go up. So the US population is paying these rates. And the rest of the world they're not really bothering about what's going on in the US. If you look at China, they implemented like huge tariffs, But China is doing great without the US. They have so many other options in the world. And that's that needs to come in mind. And at a certain point, they will start realizing it. And it's like protecting your own country, protecting your own market. But the positive effects need to come in place, and it will take time before it actually does have a positive effect on the market.
How long? How long do those tax implications take to filter into, let's say, a macroeconomic environment? 5 years, 10 years?
Even more than that. I think it will at least take 5 years. Not in the current presidency period. I think Trump will not experience the best effects of it, to be honest with you.
And that's the brilliance of it, because they branded it as it's not tax. So
No,
it's not tax. And in 5 years' time, he's possibly not there. And all he's going to do is turn back and say, this would never happen under my administration.
Yeah, that's what would they say. Yeah. Then it would have been different. But he's looking for an opportunity to extend his current term, right? So he will.
Yes.
I'm quite sure they will do everything that he can to change the regulations, that he can stay for an even longer period. If he survives, though, you never know what happens there.
You never know. Okay, let's talk about family offices. And there are quite a few family offices in the UAE. They've been evolving from sort of casual custodians to professional institutions. Seen more and more people getting sort of into that vehicle. When they scale, what should they look at first? Governance, technology, or hiring the best talent?
It actually starts with governance that should be implemented at the right place, because it's all about making money, right? But governance comes first. I mean, without it, you don't have the people. Talent will leave and technology will be not used in the right way. So you need to have the proper framework in place in order to expand.
Yes.
And you have to think about like decision-making, accountability, and risk policies. That's an important thing to attract the right people who can help you grow the family office.
I think
and the next step would be definitely be technology, because there's a huge opportunity with AI implementing new technologies that should be implemented as well. But it starts with governments, from my perspective.
Okay. It's very interesting because I read the other day that one of the biggest South African banks employ 3,500 people just for governance, just to look at governance. So that's now nationally and on the continent going up, and then internationally. And I don't think people realize how big of a thing it is, because here we are talking about AI replacing people, and you've got 3,500 people in an organization just looking at governance. It's massive.
Yeah, it is massive. And it's like what the government does as well. The government has their own government, obviously, but the thing is, it attracts so much people. You need so much people to implement the rules, to control the rules, and to see if the rules are actually obtained. That's the thing. And it takes so much time, it takes so much people, and of course, a lot of money. So it's getting in extreme. So if I talk about governance in the family office structure, it needs to be properly aligned, and it shouldn't be too much. But if you don't have any governance, then you have trust issues and investment issues. You need to be able to see what the company is doing. And for that, you need governance, but not into extremes, as the example that you just gave from a bank perspective.
Yes. But talking about that investment, because a lot of them are now sort of increasing their exposure into private markets, and I'm assuming the governance needs to adapt.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can actually do that by, for example, what we do in most of the companies that we run, or the family offices, is you need to have an investment committee, like a fund manager, to make sure who is actually independent, to prevent that you have any conflict of interest. And you need to make sure that you can also have an exit protocol, for example. So these investment committees are an important thing. They can decide if a project is interesting to invest in or not. And it needs to be independent from the company itself.
To sort of the Chinese wall, what they call it, to make sure that that there's no conflict of interest.
Absolutely, especially if it's like family. It's a family office, so there's a family involved.
Yes.
And there are also a personal relationship. And from a perspective, obviously it looks great that you want to prevent that you pay any inheritance tax, and you can actually keep your wealth, keep your legacy for the future. Kids can take it over. But the problem is there are also so many personal relations involved into huge fights and disagreements and lawsuits, in order to make sure that you need to do everything you can to make sure that there are no personal issues involved. And that's why you need to have an independent investment committee who will make decisions. This is where we're going to invest in, and we will not involve the family for that. So things are changing from that perspective.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I read somewhere the other day that only a third of family businesses survive into the second generation. And to me, that was like, that's very interesting, because you've got all this wealth and you've got personal issues. And I would never have said that to be the case. I just said, okay, cool. I mean, if you make all that money, wealth preservation should be easy. Should be.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Yeah, but
it's not the case.
That's the way people look at it. As soon as you make money, life is easy. Well,
Yes.
it comes with a lot of problems. If you start making money, then you attract some problems as well, and especially among friends and among family. It's the worst relationship that you can have. And it's my brother, so I trust him. Of course you do. But as soon as there's money involved, then it's a totally different story. So you need to have family constitutions, but also some proper shareholder agreements with exit rules. And again, independent committee, independent board members who take control of the company. It needs to be led and managed like a real company and not having family involved for every step. So you need to have a system that's stronger than family emotions.
Wow. In the companies where you sort of have advised or run, have you seen conflicts that could not be solved, or that the family, there was so much animosity that basically you said, oh, this cannot work?
Yeah, definitely. It happens a lot. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of these family structures don't survive after 3 or 4 years. It all starts well. I mean, if the father starts a family office and the father is getting older, then it's still okay. But as soon as he dies, and that's of course a sad story,
Yes.
then greed is already is grieving about the situation. But all of a sudden, people want to take over his position. They're looking for a position where I'm taking over what my dad has been doing now, and I make the decisions. But if you have 2 or 3 brothers, all with the same attitude, there can only be one person in charge, if the structure is set up the old-fashioned way. And that's why you need to make sure that in what is going to happen as soon as someone dies, then you need to have sure you have someone in place who can take control of it, and it needs to be independent, because as soon as there's money involved, it's a lot of risk and a lot of problem. And everything is fine as long as the parents are still there. But soon,
Yes. It's funny how that works.
if they die, then the next issue starts. It absolutely is the case. Yeah.
Let's say someone's listening to the podcast now and they decide they want to start a family office. First question, how much money do I need to start a family office? When is it worthwhile?
It depends.
Yes.
It used to be interesting. If you look at the perspective from a family office, it's basically just a company
Yes.
managing money. That's what it does. It's not like a special entity. It's just a company managing money, and then it's family wealth.
Yes.
And it used to be only available for the high net worth individuals. Let's say
Exactly.
$10 million, 10 million euros.
Yes.
But nowadays, for example, the company that I set up, we do family offices from around 200,000 euros.
Okay.
Because it's worth considering. And at this moment, you need to look for options abroad.
Yes.
I'm from Europe. I live in the UAE now. But if you look at Europeans, there are so many regulations coming in place now. Taxation is going through the roof. So you need to make sure that if you don't want to leave Europe, at least you make sure that your money is outside of Europe. And you can do that by structuring a company. For example, in the UAE, we do it in Mauritius, Singapore, Cayman Islands. Those are tax-friendly jurisdictions. You set up a company over there and you let your children participate. And then you basically have your own family office. And it's up to you to decide what you do with your wealth. You can invest it in projects. You can just put it on the bank and make some nice interest. But of course, the obvious best thing is to make sure that your money works for you. Mm-hmm. And that's how you set up a family office. And you can just call it a family office, even when it's in theory, it is, like I said, just a label that you give to a company where your children are the shareholders and participate in the company. So back to your question, what you should do is, if you have at least 200K,
yes,
give or take a little bit more, a little bit less, then you can say you should start considering moving your money abroad and start up a family office by setting up a company where your kids are shareholders.
Yeah, especially, I don't want to name examples or single countries out, but I'm having a lot of talk with Brits people living in Britain, the UK, and about taxes. And I joked the other day, I said, when is the government going to implement the window tax again? Because it's just tax, 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 tax. And it's inheritance tax now. And we want equity, but we want to tax the rich to bring everyone down to the same level instead of bringing everyone up. And to me, that's ridiculous.
It is, and that's why a lot of people from the UK are looking abroad. And many of them actually moved to the UAE because the tax system is a totally different story. It's for them, it's easy. The only difference is basically the weather. I mean, the language is the same. They will feel at home. The only thing is it's a lot warmer than they're used to in the UK, which is a good thing. But from a tax perspective, it's one of the best places you can move to. Absolutely. And the UK it's getting crazy over there. So if you and even there, at least if you need like 200 to 250,000, something like that, then it's interesting to consider starting up a company abroad. And it's an easy step to move to the UAE. But the UK, it's going downhill rapidly. Yeah, but not only over there, it's all over Europe.
It's just giving yourself more options, I feel.
Yeah.
It's just giving yourself more options. It's not like a nationalistic thing or something, but it's just giving yourself more options that people need to look into this. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Remco, thank you so much for joining me today. If the listeners want to go and connect with you, maybe they want to open a family office or find out more about it, where can they do that?
They can send me an email to info@epicedges.net. And my team will look into it and get back to you and talk about the options, because there are many options.
Many options. And we'll leave all the links leave all the links in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me today. And to our listeners, peace, love, and prosperity. We'll catch you in the next one.
I'm breaking down in a static glow. Whispers loud, but nobody knows. Hold me back, I'm about to explode. This gang's wrong on me. Aim on. Still standing here, glow